Today's episode is sponsored by our Worship Leader Training Course Bundle, which you can check out for free at worshipministrytraining.com. Our course bundle covers all the major topics that you need to excel as a God-honoring, people-loving worship leader. And so if that sounds like something that would be helpful to you, you can check out a free sample of all of the lessons right there on our homepage, worshipministrytraining.com. And if you'd like to purchase the bundle, you can get 25% off by typing in the promo code WMT Podcast at checkout. Hope it helps you and helps you serve your church better. Again, check out the free sample at worshipministrytraining.com. All right, let's get into today's episode. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Worship Ministry Training Podcast, a monthly podcast for worship leaders and worship team members. My name is Alex Nfiedjin, your host, and I'm so thankful that you are tuning in and investing in your leadership and in your ministry and in your church by growing and learning and developing yourself as a leader. God is pleased with you because you are stewarding your role properly. So good job. Good on you. This month, I have the privilege of talking with Tyler and Chris from Highlands Worship, which is a part of Church of the Highlands, a gigantic 60,000 person church out in Alabama. And Church of the Highlands is known for its administrative systems. It's a systems-driven church. That's why it's been able to grow and scale so big. And I know musicians and creatives can balk and even shirk and hide from systems. We like to be more spontaneous and creative, but, very important, you cannot have a healthy worship ministry without good, reliable systems and processes and habits and routines. Everything in life boils down to the habits that you have. Your health or unhealth, your church's health or unhealth, your family's health or unhealth stem from the routine habits and rituals and repeated tasks that you do on a regular basis. They drive the results that you're getting. And so if you want better results in your ministry or in your family or in your personal health, you need to look at what you're repeatedly doing. And so in this month's episode, I talk with Chris and Tyler about what are the routine habits and processes that they have in place for recruiting and onboarding team members, for developing and training those people, and then for discipling and encouraging those people. So whether you're at a big church or a small church, I want you to think about how can you improve the repeated systems and processes at your current ministry, because it will be the thing that makes you excellent or doesn't. And so enjoy this episode, and I will catch you on the back end. Hey, everybody. I am here with Chris and Tyler from Highlands Worship, which is the worship ministry of Church of the Highlands out in Alabama. Hello, guys. How you doing?
Hello, Alex. How's it going?
It's good to be with you. And just before we get any further, maybe Chris and Tyler, I haven't even asked you your roles. What do you guys do at Church of the Highlands?
Tyler, you want to take it?
Yeah. So I actually work for Chris during the week, and we
work together, Tyler.
Okay.
Not working.
Yeah.
I like that, Chris.
Yes.
I like that.
Well, I work alongside Chris, and he provides oversight. And
when needed,
we get to make the creative music that comes out of the church. So that's kind of like the weekday job. It's all working on music for specials, music for albums, music for services. And then on Sunday, I play keys, and I am actually the central music director at the church, which means that I'm at our broadcast campus music directing the band and helping that experience.
Yeah. And Chris, before you answer, just to ask about the central music director portion, do you also train and develop and oversee the other music directors all throughout all your campuses?
That is kind of actually a goal. I haven't been able to do that yet. We were trying to figure out a digital way of doing that, so a way that it can be replicated and people can just go watch it on demand.
Right.
But that's in the future of something our team will do.
Awesome. And Chris, what's your role there?
Yeah, sure. Hey, Alex, I'll just follow up super quick on Tyler. He's super humble. So we're a large multi-site church, 23 campuses. Tyler is at the broadcast campus where our Pastor Chris Hodges, preaches out of. And, Tyler's kind of the gold standard. And our teams, our worship teams, the keys music director position is probably the most challenging, most responsibility. So he's running tracks. He's got, we've all got in-ears, and he's calling the cues with a music director mic that just goes to the musicians and the singers' ears. So he's kind of the air traffic controller. He's looking at the pastor for cues, looking at the worship leader for cues, and then he's getting us through the service. Tyler's very active in that, extremely competent, and would kind of be the barometer for all the other campuses of that. But
look at those props coming from your boss.
I mean, you got to give them when they're due,
Yeah. Now, again, sorry, I'm going to stop you before you tell us your role again, Chris, because now I want to hear, Tyler, what is the worst botch, music directing botch or fumble that you guys have had in your history there, if any? Maybe Highlands Worship is perfect. Anything come to mind?
Botches. I've got a good one recently. We had to drop in another song because we were changing something in the set. So I dropped it into Ableton for the playback of the tracks, and it messed up the tempo of the first song. We did Lion and the Lamb at like snail speed. So it's like, oh
no.
But then we got it. And we got it back up to speed during the intro, but I'm just over there like, hey y'all, we're going to have to fix this.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty funny.
Oh my god.
Everybody's dying laughing.
Some of the amazing new things with tech that's happening. I mean, we are at Disneyland. We're probably not relatable to the average church on the tech end of things, but a lot of our campuses have got their own way to hear Tyler. So let's say we do a merge on a Sunday coming out of a song. Let's say we want the whole church to sing along with a bridge and chorus of a song. Every other campus is actually hearing Tyler in real time in that campus's and their musicians' ears. And the entire church is following along with Tyler as he's leading us through the in-ears, through the progression of the service that sets up the ministry moment. And so there's just some amazing technology that's, come out in the last several years. That's a lot of fun. So.
That's crazy. Okay, Chris, Now please tell us, who are you? What do you do at Highlands?
Yeah, sure, man. I have been at the church 9 years. I was hired starting in 2010 to help the church arrange their Christmas music. And they were doing that for 3 years with me. They'd hire me in as a contractor. I've got a varied background in a bunch of different stuff, play a bunch of stringed instruments. And did that for 3 years. They're trying to find a spot for me as a worship director at a campus. I'm a terrible singer. And so they were just trying to figure out where it was going to fit. And then finally, after the third year, they just made a job for me, and they made up a title called the Creative Worship Director. So it was just me. And now that's morphed into, I think we have 14 or 15 people on our team now. So any content that is music related that's coming out of the church, that could be content under video, that could be content for events or conferences, that's things like Christmas, Easter, the church's original music, all that stuff is coming out of my team. We also handle the church's music business. We have a music business attorney that's on the team. We also have a video portion of our team now. So in-house, we do everything except the mix and master. So we create all of our social media marketing assets. We create all the music videos. We do all the recording. We do all the prep for mix. And then the only thing that's coming out of the house is we send it out for mix and match.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. That's amazing that you guys have so many people. And just so our listeners have context, you kind of hinted at it a little bit, but Church of the Highlands is like maybe 60,000+ attendees, 25,000 Dream Team volunteer members or something like that, crazy like that. Is that right?
These are great pre-COVID numbers that you're propping us up with.
Yeah, of course.
True. But
yeah, I know totally. We were 10,000 at our church, and I'm guessing now we're probably 4.5, 5. That's my guess.
Yeah, I look at all the church averages, and it's almost regardless of size. I think churches are running between 50 and 70% of their pre-COVID kind of physical attender numbers, and that's where I would say we're we're around that. That's created all kind of fun challenges, with volunteers trying to pull off services, all the fun things. But yes, it's a large church. We were founded in 2001, I think, and we're known as a systems church. We were one of the pioneers of the multi-site campus. That happened completely by happenstance. A pastor passed away at a local church that was maybe 15 minutes drive from the one location that we had, and he donated his church for $1. He gave us his building, and that entered the multi-site thing for us. Up until that point, we were just thinking, hey, you expand your broadcast campus location out and out and out. But then we decided, hey, this multi-site thing is amazing, and it's created all kind of fun tech things and just all the great things that come with it. So
one of the funniest things about that is for years they were recording it for the first service and then putting it on a DVD, and then you'd have people that would have to drive it to the location, and they're breaking the law, trying to get it there at the fastest speed. Because I think they had to drive it from Birmingham to Auburn, which is about an hour and a half. So they had to book it as soon as it was over. They were leaving.
That's insanity. That's a pretty intense volunteer position. You kind of almost want a police officer to be that volunter,
you do,
so they could just like turn
service.
their sirens on.
We have a race car driver on staff.
We do actually.
That's so funny. Well, so what I did want to talk with you guys about specifically is the systems that you guys have in place for your volunteers. So talk to us about, first of all, you mentioned COVID, and you mentioned how, COVID really messed up your volunteer base and your church attendance. And my experience has been the same. Like, my volunteer base feels like it's been decimated, and all throughout all the ministries of our church. We used to have women's and men's and marriage ministry teams and all sorts of worship teams all throughout our church. And now we're just like piecing stuff together, whatever we can. Now it's like I'm struggling to make sure Sunday has a great team every week because I've lost a few keyboard players or whatever. So how has COVID affected, and then we'll get into the systems stuff, but how has COVID affected your volunteer base, and what are you guys doing to kind of remedy that?
Yeah, I would say, we're no different than any other church. You name it, we've done it, from, hey, we used to have 2 electric guitar players. Now we have 1. Hey, we don't have a bass player. You're driving people from other campuses. Your frontline singers, may be a lot less. You may not have a female singer that day, so you're switching things to a guy key. There's just a million different obstacles, or challenges, but
we're relying on tracks.
We're relying on tracks, that kind of stuff. I mean, we are fortunate that we have a large musician base, and at one point we were several people deep at the majority of our campuses, and we're known as a systems church. So we have a development program. We have all kind of feeder groups that we've been raising up and trying to get people involved. And it's a large church, and so that helps. You've always got hopefully volunteers to draw from. But yeah, man, we've done everything under the sun to try to make sure that the Sunday experience goes off well. On the micro level, on the interpersonal level, we're just trying to make sure that there is a quality touch point with that person, with that volunteer. It's pick up the phone. How you doing? Haven't seen you at church for a while. Notice you haven't been able to be scheduled on PCO. Just wanted to see how you're doing. Are you comfortable? Is your family doing well? We really want to know, are you good? We'd love to see you back at church, and then, we're working it from there. But I think there's a comfort level. Some people are really comfortable being around a lot of people, and some people are not. And so you just have to respect that and trust that the Lord's going to bring the right people at the right time. And he has.
That's good. Tyler, anything to add?
Yeah, I actually, I schedule Grants Mill other than so that's our main campus. I schedule it other than Sunday night. And yeah, you can see certain people, like a specific guitar player. He was great. He was playing for a while, and then COVID started to spike again, and he started pulling back because he's just protecting him and his wife. But we deal with the same problems anybody else did. I got a text at 2:00 in the morning the other night about a bass player that got sick, and then I had to start scrambling at 2:30 in the morning. So I started.
All your bass players are like, "Why are you calling me?"
Yeah. And I set it all up and everything, and just told people where to go in the morning, and said, "I'm like, if there's any problems, just blame me." It's like I will deal with it. So, I mean,
Yeah,
it's the same problems as anybody else is having. And going even more to the development side, it's just having conversations with people. Like once they're getting more comfortable in the system and like playing here, it's like constantly pushing them to get better. So like maybe they've been doing great, but maybe there's one thing they could do to be a better musician and no one's told them. So hopefully it's helping them out like personally in their musicianship and helping us out to get what we need.
Yeah. And even just speaking about that developmental conversation about like, hey, here's one little thing I want you to work on. Like nobody ever gets offended by that. Like I've never said something like that. Like, hey, Mr. Bass Player, like, hey, when you slide down from the neck, like you're like, it's too scratchy. Like you need to like lighten up your grip or whatever it is. The little small things that, you know, you want to help them grow in, like they're never offended. I don't know. Have you guys had anybody be like, how could you ask me to sing different? I don't know. Maybe singers are a little bit more touchy than musicians.
Because it's your actual voice. So it's like, your instrument is you.
Yeah.
It's
a little bit more,
personal.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your systems then, because you said, and I've heard Chris Hodges, the senior pastor, say he's a systems guy and Highlands is a systems church. So let's talk about your systems. I want to hit some different areas like the recruiting process, the service preparation process, and then also like the discipleship, and like you kind of have already touched on it. Some of it's not necessarily a system. You just pick up the phone and call people, but I'd like to hear what you guys do to really spiritually develop your volunteers. So let's start with the recruiting system. Like, what does it look like at Church of the Highlands to find, audition, and onboard your volunteers?
Sure. So we have a system called the Growth Track. And so we'll just take it from the very beginning. You are a new member to the church and you're going through the church membership process. And then we have a system that helps you identify your interests. Let's say you want to be a guitar player. So you would go through 3 Sunday night weeks. And at the third Sunday night week, you would say, hey, I'm a guitar player. I'd love to get involved in the team. And then we have kind of an audition process. If you are accepted into the audition process, we're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for aptitude. And so then we put you into what we call a development process. That's every Thursday night. And it's basically a real band format. And we ask you to learn a couple songs. And then you come up, and every band position has its own coach. So the bass player has a bass coach. The drum have a drum coach, blah, 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 blah. And you play the song, and then the coach who's standing right next to you will help you tweak your tone or tweak your sound. And then you'll just play that again over and over and over again. And you do that every Thursday night. The average dream team member is what we call our volunteers, are in that development process for 6 months to a year. And then we graduate you out of the process, and then we start scheduling you for services. But what that really does is it helps the staff just kind of see where you're at. And everybody's got different issues, and it may not just be your playing. So there may be some heart issues, or maybe some things going on where you've done something a certain way for a set number of years. And, you know, we're just working those things out with the way and the process that we like to do things. And we always say that, you know, 10% of it is actually playing on the stage, and 90% of it, you're going to be backstage. You know, you're going to be hanging out with other people. And so we just want to make sure all those areas, we're all on the same page. And so then we graduate you and we start scheduling you at various campuses, you know, via the PCO app. This is kind of the second phase of that. People ask us all the time why there's a high level of consistency between our campuses. And a lot of our response post-graduation from the development program is that the layers of resourcing that we do on the PCO app. And we go next level with our resourcing. We have an in-house guy that's making videos for every guitar part, every bass part, all the drum parts, every vocal part. You know, we have voice memos that's saying, this is the soprano part for the bridge. This is the alto part for the chorus. And we also would take all the multi-tracks and we create what we call hot tracks for each instrument, to where you can listen to the song, but the acoustic guitar strum is turned up really loud, or you can hear the strum with just the click track. So on any given song, you might have 35 or 40 individual resources that help you learn the song. And then our expectation on our team is the rehearsal is not for learning the song. The rehearsal is really for the front of house people, sound guys, and for transition moments. Each musician is expected to come with the resources that's provided to them. They're expected to come knowing the song and ready to play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. And your onboarding process, or that 6 to 12 month training process, reminds me a lot of a church in Texas called Celebration Church. They have the same thing, where you don't really audition for the team, you audition for this process or this, training ground. And I think my listeners have heard a bit about that same system, but I think one area that I don't touch on enough is auditioning. What does your audition process look like for these people when they come out of the growth track and they say, I want to play guitar? What does that look like?
So they'll go to an audition. It's once a month. And the way we've been doing it is we will actually video it and they'll play to tracks. So which is great because, or sing to tracks. So then there's no human error involved, which is great because then they could change the key if they needed to. And then it's just, there's a video recording of it. Then people will watch it back later and see how they did and see, like, as Chris was saying, it doesn't matter if they messed up, but is their aptitude, are they capable of really like playing with a band or capable of singing harmonies? Because that's one of the things for the vocals they'll do. So it's, they'll have one singing melody and they'll have one singing harmony, and you have to pick the harmony and just see if you can actually hear harmony. So then, if you're accepted into development, you'll get an email from Planning Center asking you to set up your profile. But if not, they'll get a phone call and it'll be a person saying what happened and if they have any questions or whatever. But then the biggest thing we try to do is, if they're not invited to the program, is kind of pushing them towards another area of the church to serve in, so that they're not just getting thrown away and they're not just kind of like missing out on serving at the church.
Right.
So still trying to provide them an avenue of place to serve and a place to be involved.
Yeah, that's so good. And I don't know about you guys, but one of the places I push people who aren't quite ready to be involved in worship ministry is the production ministry, because it still touches the musical side, but you don't have to sing well, or whatever, play well. So yeah. I love that. And the tracks idea, that's a really great idea. The recording aspect, the fact that you're filming them audition is, I think, the secret sauce of all auditions, because what I've been doing too is mainly with the singing auditions that I do, it's recording them so that they can hear themselves. Because when you're singing, you don't really know that you're off. But when I can point it out to you in a recording, you're like, do you hear how the end of your note is like? So anyway, for all the listeners listening, please record your auditions, because you need the proof to show them that they're not actually ready.
And it helps you too, because then you can listen back, because you might remember it differently than it actually went.
That's true.
Too.
That's very true. Very true. Okay, so that was your onboarding process. Very robust. You talked about giving people good resources to prepare for services, and even to the point where you're recording every single part for every single instrument and every single vocal. One thing that I've never heard explained very well is when you assign vocalists alto, soprano, how do they know when to sing that part and when to hold off? Do you guys put some sort of sing here, don't sing here, PDF in the Planning Center docs, or how do you guys? And then how does each singer know which part to take? Because when I schedule my background singers, I just say BGV 1, 2, 3, but there's not parts assigned to those specific roles. It's just based on the singer's range and abilities. How do you guys handle that?
So we'll actually schedule people for soprano or alto. But then there is a PDF where it'll say unison, but then stuff coming in at the beginning of the song, we come up with that during rehearsal, hey, let's just let the lead take this, or hey, everybody in from the top. And then they'll split off into parts. And some of that's even happening with the worship leader live, on stage, directing them, telling them hey, we're going to go 2 parts here. Let's go 3 parts. So then, but yes, there's a PDF, and then if they know the parts, but part of that's also just in the rehearsal.
Yeah, being flexible, having a plan, but then being flexible. Yeah, that's really good.
So it's coming prepared and then being ready to change it.
I love that. Do you do that with your band as well, where it's like they come prepared, but like, okay, hey guys, based on the first song's energy, let's bring the drums in right away at the top of the second song, even though do you guys make little changes like that?
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
All the time. Like the other day, I mean, it was even something with Chris and I, like we were in like one of the songs and the song was feeling really intense. So I just asked him to he's playing electric guitar. I'm like, hey, can you just lay off on this section and kind of let it come down? He loved it.
And your boss said yes.
Greatest idea ever. He said, thank you, Tyler, for your wonderful ideas.
You get a raise, Tyler.
Alex, I think one of the main great things about that development process is we train people up on loving feedback. And if you can get to the point to where you crave feedback, I think that's a real sign of health. Whatever instrument you play, if you can go up to the person that's in charge of whatever you're doing and say, hey, after each service, can you give me feedback? Can you give me feedback? Can you give me feedback? And you see yourself constantly taking steps and getting better and better and better. You start to really crave that. And, the alternative of that is I see a lot of people who are not used to feedback and they may really shy away from that, or that may keep them from trying to join the team or having the confidence to come on. But we really teach, feedback is a positive value. Mm-hmm. And it's once you get that in your DNA, I mean, it's amazing the growth that someone can have when they're really used to just give it to me. I want it. And we always try to give life-giving feedback. So it's never in a spirit of, this was terrible. It was always, hey, you're doing a great job. Everything's looking good. Hey, you're really doing good with locking into the click. That's what we talked about last week. But this week, let's just work on those high notes, maybe bend those knees a little bit. And let's make sure that pitch gets right there where we want it to be, so it's life-giving things.
No, I love that. I think that's so helpful. And it almost starts, I don't know about you guys, but for me, it almost starts right in the audition. It's like, hey, you're going to sing. I'm going to give you some things to work on. This is what I do with everybody else too. This is just how our team operates. And you kind of just set that standard right at the front, right? One thing I want to highlight too is for any of the listeners listening is musical excellence doesn't necessarily come from having uber talented people. It comes from these little small systems that are in place that give people the resources that they need. Because I think a lot of people in small churches, I mean, I've been in small churches, I know what it's like, but you think, oh, I could never be as good as Highlands Worship or whatever, pick your favorite band. But actually, if you develop people and then you give them the resources so that they can prepare and you create these standards, you can get to a really high level of excellence, so just kind of an exhortation and encouragement. So
yeah, our motto is simple songs done well.
That's good.
Simple songs done well.
That's really good. Yeah. And your senior pastor was a worship leader at one point, right?
Yeah, still he plays piano all the time. People don't realize Tyler knows this more than anyone, but he is still very active. I mean, he'll be on the front row and we have signs, 3 for the bridge, kick it back, whatever, double the chorus. And he's on the front row and he's giving Tyler those signs if he's feeling it. We've all been around, pastors that, hey, the worship is this portion and the message is this portion and it's completely separate. Yeah. But our pastor is thinking about the service experience as a whole.
Man, that's so nerve-wracking, huh, Tyler? Your senior pastor is telling you, get the band back to the bridge, man. Come on. Now, how do you run the tracks, Tyler, that you can be so flexible?
Generally, if it's flow or off track, so it would be just using a click track. So there's been times where the tracks are supposed to go a certain way and he's come up and we've changed it. And we actually set up a button on there that fades the tracks out over about 1.5 seconds. Nice. The click will keep going. So it's actually P for panic. So it's the panic button. And I hit that and they all just fade out. And then, so that happened a week or two ago. So I faded them out. And then we have a rhythm watch by Tama. So I just ended up starting another click and then stopping Ableton and then just calling it a day with the computer and now just going straight to band with a metronome.
That's good. I've seen one church, local church here nearby me, that they have their tracks and then they have a pad MP3 and a click track at the same BPM underneath each song, so they can just easily. But I like the crossfade idea. So maybe Tyler, I'll have to do an interview with you about music directing one of these days.
Oh, for sure. That'd be fun.
I'd love to hear, more about your systems for because I think the musical side is important, but obviously we all know at the end of the day, like Jesus won't really give us any rewards based on how awesome our band sounded. He'll probably like give us maybe a pat on the back or a thumbs up, but like more important.
Get a fist bump, bro.
Yeah, yeah. He's like, good job on the music, and then he's gonna be like, but how did you do with the people? And we're gonna be like, oh. So for all of the worship leaders out there who are too focused on the music, how do you guys disciple your people? What can our listeners take from you guys? Like, how are you communicating with your people? Obviously, Planning Center is a huge part of that. But what about just general communication and any systems you have for encouraging people, building them up in the faith? What does it look like to disciple the musicians at your church?
Well, I feel like our, musicians, and it's almost per campus now, the bigger we've gotten, the more we've kind of encouraged each campus to be autonomous with their teams. And we have some things that are coming from central set list and different things, but we're really encouraging each campus. That's their family. That's their campus family. We spend so much time with each other, either in the green room or not on the stage, that I think just the intentionality of making sure that we're relationally healthy with one another. And so, we're all pretty tight, and I think that just comes with doing life with one another. It's a lot of, hey, how's your day? How's your family? How's your week? What can I pray for you about? Of course, we have a corporate prayer time backstage before we go on. But yeah, I think the majority of that is just happening organically, being intentional with your team. Hey, you want to go to coffee? You want to hang out? You want to go to lunch? You want to, so just the day-to-day walk of life keeps us encouraged.
Do you guys do that decently often, like taking people out to coffee?
Yeah. Again, at this team, you're getting a lot of the broadcast campus perspective with Tyler and I. But I'm taking one of my guys to lunch every week.
Wow.
I actually feel like in this season in particular, my job is the leader of these guys is to make sure that their health is good. Their family's health is good. And I'm kind of encouraging us to push out. The world is trying to cram so much stuff at us now. It's almost too much to take in. There's just too much. And so I'm just saying, hey guys, let's focus on the job that the Lord has told us to do. And I want to make sure that our team stays healthy, because if we're healthy, we can really, benefit and bless our church. So, that I think just the day-to-day intentionality in that.
Or even just shooting a text every once in a while is like, hey man, I really appreciate you. Like, so easy. It takes 5 seconds, but it means a lot. If it like, especially when you're genuine and you're saying like, hey, I like really appreciate what you do, and like you being around and being there with us.
Yeah, and home groups are a huge part. I forgot what you guys call them, but they're a huge part of your church. Yeah. Right. So, most of your church, you guys have like the highest percentage of people from attendees in home groups of like any church in the world or something crazy like that. But so that's probably where they're getting the discipleship, right? And I'm guessing your team is expected to also be in a home group as well. Yeah. Which obviously all that kind of changed during COVID, I'm guessing. I don't know how it was in Alabama, but in California, it was like no groups of over 2 people. Anyway. So,
it just became more virtual.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like Zoom became a big proponent of small groups. Actually, I do a ultimate Frisbee small group. So, like they can be like a ton of fun.
That's rad. That's fun. Yeah. So then you really are doing life with people and like connecting outside. And then it's just up to us as leaders to keep the conversation intentional about Jesus, spiritual, all those things. Do you guys only communicate to your teammates through Planning Center? That's like period. It's like email based through Planning Center.
No. That is absolutely how you're scheduled. And if there's any like times that like you need to know, like time of rehearsal or whatever, but like that'll come through Planning Center through an email. But depending on when that information is going out, I will also text you, because if it's like a Saturday afternoon, I don't know if you're going to look at your email, but I'm pretty sure you're going to look at text.
Right. So we've been for 3-4 years, we've been using this app called Band, and it's like basically like private Facebook groups, but not with all the distractions of Facebook. And so we created different bands for each of our ministries, and we've been using that, and it was pretty effective. But I think all communication during COVID like kind of stopped working. People just, I don't know, got digitalized out of like, they're just like, I don't want to, they don't respond to text or anything. So band, we're like starting to rethink, maybe we should just dump band. But for any of the listeners listening, check it out. It's worth checking out. But my assistant, she said, we should just start texting people instead. But I was curious if you guys had a good digital connection besides text and Planning Center, but it doesn't sound like it.
I mean, we're with everybody so much that it's just easy to throw out a text. If we're doing a conference or something and it's the same band over a period of days, we'll just name a text thread, at women's conference band or whatever it is. So when changes are flying really quickly, everybody's up to date.
Got it.
For bigger things like church-wide, I don't know if you're looking for this answer, but like, the stuff that's coming out, like here's the flow of the service, here's the message notes, here's what's happening. That's all done over Slack. So that keeps up with it. And that would hit all of like the worship directors, and then they're expected to communicate that with their teams.
Got it. However they want. Yeah. I'd love to just, we're going to transition in a bit to talk about your album, because I just listened to it this morning and I was very touched and ministered to by it. So thank you. But I want to just one more thing, talk about your volunteers. You guys have this room, I guess it's in all your campuses probably, called like, I don't know, is it Dream Team Station? Or I heard a podcast with Pastor Chris talking about it recently. What was it called? Dream Team Central? It's like a locker room. Yeah. Dream Team Central. So tell our listeners, what is this room in the church and why is it important and what happens there? And does your band go there, or is it, just share about that.
So everybody ends up going there. They do meetings in there, like team kind of rallies. And then it's a place for people to hang out. There's places for people to put their things. But the most important thing about that room is food. There is a spread of food at every campus, and oftentimes it's actually pretty substantial food. So you go in there between services, grab some food, grab a drink, go sit down, gives you a break from playing, a break from whatever. But the biggest thing about it is the food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most of the musicians were kind of behind stage. There's usually a room that has a television feed that you can see multiple things on. You can see what's happening online. You can see the next section of notes that's coming up from the pastor, has some time markers, several things on it. And that's where a lot of the musicians are if we're not sitting in service, which is greatly encouraged. At least sit in one or two services. We have 3 morning services on a Sunday. So, Dream Team Central for musicians, we're just going up and we're grabbing a quick bite to eat.
Mm-hmm. But there's also stuff on the walls. Like last week, 28 people got saved at this campus because of your ministry. Yeah. They're keeping the vision in front of people and connecting their acts of service to the bigger picture of why it matters, right?
Yeah, 100%. The emphasis on our volunteer base, just can't be overstated. It's paramount in every message. Small groups, again, you quoted some stats, but every message, every the news bumpers, everything is encouraging people, creating awareness. Hey, get in a group, get on the team. That kind of verbiage.
Mm-hmm. That's good. So there's definitely some very practical systems that our listeners can think through and figure out, how do I implement something similar in my own church? Let's switch gears here. I know you got to head out soon, Chris. Talk about your new album, Prayers to the King. It's like a reflective, personal worship time album, something you would listen to during your devos, helps you commune with God and pray. I was very blessed just like listening to it this morning, just nice surround sound speakers, like hearing all the atmosphere going on. Yes. How did you guys, in the midst of all your busyness, make time to songwrite? And what did that process look like? Were you guys getting together with your songwriters every week, or were people writing at home and sending voice memos, or was it a combo of that? Share the process and how you guys were able to prioritize that in the midst of running teams.
Yeah, great question. Lots of layers to that answer. Our church, 21 days of prayer. We do it twice a year. We do it in August and in January. That's where our entire church comes together for 21 days at 6 a.m. in the morning. And we have a short message, and then we pray individually, and then come back and we have a short prayer time at the end of that. So that's a lifeline in our church, corporate prayer and corporate prayer seasons. And so we have all of these different prayers that are in the Bible and different resources over the last 20 years that have been in a booklet form. But our church just came out with an app called the Pray First app. Pray First. It's free. It is in the App Store now, but it has all of the prayers, all of the main prayers in the Bible with commentary in them. And so when we were preparing that app, the one thing that we didn't have was music to go along with that. And so the idea was to write a personal prayer time, contemplative, meditative project that could be used in conjunction with the app, or, when you're having your personal prayer time, or just, we've heard so many stories of people that say, hey, every night before I go to bed and I'm feeling anxious, I turn on this album and I just let it play all night. And it has ministered to me. And that was the intent of this. We love writing congregational worship music. We write a lot of it. We play a lot of it in our church. That was not the intent for this project. This project, every part of the recording process, the writing process, was designed to give people a place of rest and peace that they could go to in an audio soundtrack. And so that's the creation of that project, Prayers to the King. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we're super excited about it.
Tyler?
Now, how that actually got pulled off was we did it in about 8 weeks. Maybe less.
Wow.
So we had the idea, or Chris did, with the person who's over the development of the app. They're best friends. And he was like, hey, the only thing this app is missing is music. And then came in the legal things of you can't just put anything on there. So he was like, we'll write something for it. And we went up the system and everybody was down with it. And for about 8 weeks, it was just a grind of a lot of work and a lot of stuff to get that all finished. And Chris is being humble, but he was spending nights at home on the phone or with his guitar, then going up to the other songwriters and then figuring out stuff. And it was every week just coming up with another song of like, hey, we've got to get 10 songs on this. Mm-hmm. And originally we had the idea of doing songs we had already done and changing them to this style. But it was really, I think it was great. It was really his vision. I think we want to write something for prayer. And I'm really pleased with how it turned out. But I mean, it was absolutely a grind on all of us. And I'm glad we did it. But it was a lot of fun, a lot of work.
For it being a grind, it's an extremely peaceful album. so that didn't translate like that. It's so nice. And I love how scripturally saturated it is. I mean, really, like, it's beautiful. It really is, you guys. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you, because you guys are obviously arrangers and producers, it's all soft songs. So first of all, I love that it doesn't sound like every other worship album out there, because they all sound the same kind of. No offense to anybody who produces worship, but it feels very different. It sounds very different. And it's all soft and reflective. So what did you guys learn about arranging parts for soft songs? Because sometimes it can all start to feel the same because you don't really have too much drum beat going there. And so you can't really make it differentiated by that. So what did you guys learn in arranging soft songs?
Sure. Great question. We were very intentional on all the recording and producing of the project to make sure that there was a emotive vibe that was happening. So we would do things like there were no guitar picks used on the album. Everything was done with the fingers. There were no drumsticks. Everything was done with brushes or with hot rods. All of the vocals, we didn't let them put on headphones. We would play the tracks out of speakers turned down at the lowest volume possible. So they had to almost whisper sing instead of actually sing. And it was all created around this intent of making a project where there were no harsh edges. There's nothing that's going to stick out that's going to distract you from that kind of contemplative place. On the writing side, we do have kind of a songwriting method that we've done for several years about, putting people in groups, and we do these 90-minute sessions of song starts. This project in particular, I have a personal mentor that was Integrity Hosanna writer in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I brought her into this project, and she really had a great hand in the richness of the crafting of the lyric. She's almost a scholar. And just personally, to me, it was a lot of blessing having her involved in the project. So.
Yeah, the lyrics were beautiful. Perfect. Yeah. Cool, guys. Well, I'm going to put a link in there for the listeners to access via Apple Music or Spotify. But any final words for the listeners just about anything on your heart in worship ministry or the system side of it or anything at all? You guys want to close? What do you want to say to the worship leaders listening?
Sure. I think we're really excited about this app right now. We think it's a perfect partner for the 1-year Bible. So if you are reading your 1-year Bible and you've gone through the 15-minute plan, grabbing the Pray First app, and then spending a few minutes on a set prayer that's in the Word, going through the commentary, and then just kind of pausing, setting up your day. We think it's a perfect complement for that. So the app is called Pray First. It has the entire album that's on it, and the album is called Prayers to the King. So.
Awesome. Tyler, any final words to encourage worship leaders listening?
Yeah, I mean, it would just be... don't just look at us and don't look at other big churches and think that you have to have all of the amount of people and all of the amount of resources, all the tech to do it. Because, I mean, it was kind of like what you were talking about earlier, that Jesus isn't going to look at us and go, wow, you sounded great. Because, I mean, you can do all of this same stuff that we're doing with just an acoustic guitar and a person singing, or just a piano and a person singing. So, I mean, it would just be continually finding people, investing in people, and hopefully building up your team. Something we've noticed here is if you have somebody who maybe isn't as good musically, but then you have somebody who's great, if you get that one person in the band who is great, they will bring up the level of everybody and it'll make everything better. So it's just finding that one person. So I would just always pray for that.
Yeah, that's really good, you guys. Thanks for making the time in your busy schedule to encourage our listeners, and I'm really grateful for this conversation.
Alex, thanks for having us, man. You're a blessing. We appreciate you.
It's fun.
All right, well, that's all we have time for today. I hope you were helped and encouraged by this episode. If you were, please take a second, forward it on to someone that you think needs to hear it. Also, be sure to check out worshipministrytraining.com for free articles, training resources, and free courses, as well as paid courses to help you grow as a God-honoring worship leader. I will see you next month for another helpful episode. God bless you as you serve Him.